And on this panel, we've got leaders from 4 companies that are all kind of focused on different aspects of usability. So why don't we first get started by you guys just talking a little bit about who you are and what aspect of usability you're focused on. Why don't we start with Ben? Maybe tell people a little bit about Silvergate in particular, which I think many might not know. Silvergate is a bank that banks a lot of the industry in the U.S.
Thanks. So Silvergate really started looking at the space in 2013, and it was really our CEO, Alan Lane, that decided that Bitcoin was pretty interesting. So it's great to have that tone at the top when you're looking at banking Bitcoin companies. So what we did was we set out to say, you know, how can we bank this industry? And when I say bank, I just mean really basic banking services. You know, companies were getting kicked out of banks, and so we said, you know, if we're going to do this, we need to do it with the full approval of our regulators, or at least as much approval as we can get. So we set out this program to do due diligence and be able to bank Bitcoin companies at the time. So when you look at our business today, we bank about 100 digital currency firms total. We have an interesting perspective because it's a mix of digital currency exchanges, institutional investors, and software developers, or people that are doing token sales. So you know that's Silvergate. And what was the original part of the question?
Oh, no, we were just looking to hear how exactly you're focused on usability, right? So I guess in your end, your usability is really connecting companies to crypto, right? In the traditional banking world, that is, to crypto.
Yeah, so we actually spend a decent amount of time looking at usability from the perspective of banking the proceeds from token sales. So you know, we take the approach that, you know, we try to partner with our clients, understand what their token is. You know, is it a utility token, or is it a security, and sort of what's the process that you've gone through to determine that. So we actually spend a fair amount of time as a bank talking about the technology itself and what the token is supposed to be used for on the platform.
Linda, maybe you want to talk a little bit about, you know, what you're working on now and how you're kind of focused on usability.
Yeah, so I co-founded a crypto hedge fund called Scalar Capital, and one of the prime use cases so far of cryptocurrencies in the space has been around speculation. I hope there's, well, speculation and CryptoKitties, those seem to be like the 2 big ones, but speculation in the space, we want to make sure that customers can have exposure to this space without having to worry about custody and all the things that come around with custody. So we're handling everything from like hard forks and airdrops to staking and proof of stake models. We also have to deal with, if we're running a master node, we're also handling, so if there's projects like 0x that have decentralized governance models, we also have to handle how are you actually voting. So there's a lot more than just like storing the funds themselves. So we're making it really usable for this, for our customers from a speculation standpoint. They don't have to deal with that.
Thomas, want to talk a little bit about Ledger and how you guys are working on that problem?
Yeah, sure. So I'm the co-founder of Ledger, and it's a company that we created in 2014. And we've got, like, in our team, some experts in the hardware security space. And from the very beginning, well, we all know that security is a major issue in the crypto space. So it's like you're using like an asset that's a digital bearer bond, and if you actually screw up, then you lose everything. So the part of the issues in usability for users is that if you want to be serious and not lose your assets, you need to have a setup that where your keys are managed, or you sign transaction totally offline. And this kind of process can be very cumbersome if you want to make it through sets of offline computers. And what we're designing at Ledger is like some security tools to enable people to manage keys in the best possible way. So starting on the consumer side with like hardware wallets, so little single-purpose computers, offline computers that will manage your private keys in the best secure environment, and starting work also on some enterprise version for like enterprises who want to build some governance models on how their funds can be accessed.
How many people have Ledger wallets? I'm curious.
Wow. Like 2 years ago, it was like people thought we were crazy to have like an actual physical device to store like a digital asset, and it's really nice to see like people feel that it's important to have their own keys on a device like that. So,
do you think this this trend of Bitcoin forks has driven adoption of your product?
Yeah, definitely. I think that one thing that changed, there's a couple of things that changed. One thing that changed is the fact that we came from a world that was very Bitcoin-centric. Well, you only had to secure one set of private keys to a world where there's a lot of different assets that are valuable. So you've got like Bitcoin, but you've got a lot of other assets. You've got Ethereum, you've got all the tokens. And if you want to have the true potential of crypto, you need to own your keys. If you want to benefit from the alpha, if you want to participate in an ICO, if you want to work in a decentralized application, you need to have your keys. Having your keys is complicated. We provide a solution that makes it easier and very secure to have your own keys to be your own bank. So definitely like this trend of, the actual need to have the private keys definitely helped us quite a lot on the, in the last 18, 24 months.
That's a good segue to Taylor, which I think MyEtherWallet has also kind of benefited from, particularly token sales, right? I think a lot of new users that are getting in for ICOs, MyEtherWallet has kind of become a go-to product for those types of people. Maybe you want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, we have seen just absolutely exponential growth at MyEtherWallet. And it's not just the ICOs, it's also just, I mean, everyone is excited about this space. And the ICOs really, really drove it because you had, I think, this concept that the potential is there, and these ideas are really, really brilliant, and these teams are doing something remarkable. And so we saw a really, really diverse set of users enter this space. It was hard though, because we were not ready to like scale at that level. We're talking like 100 times, 100x growth, you know, just, it was madness, especially June, July, August were really, really tough. And so right now, you know, what we're building is, you know, essentially MyEtherWallet is an interface. We're trying to get people to understand that we are like this gateway that allows you to interact with the blockchain, but we don't hold your keys. And people actually have a hard time understanding that. We get emails every single day with people who are like, hey, I lost my password, lost my key, can you like, you know, send it to me? And so next 6 months, we're really, really focused on user education, especially new users who really don't understand what's going on at all.
So basically you have people that see DJ Khaled advertise an ICO, they want to get involved, and then you have to teach them what public key cryptography is, right?
Right. So from like our perspective, from MyEtherWallet's perspective, somebody like decided to have an idea and promote the hell out of it. Someone else saw that and was like, I want to throw money at that. They Googled it. They ended up on some like single page tutorial that was like, hey, go to myetherwallet.com and do this stuff and then like send them all your money. And then we're the ones picking up the pieces at the end that are like, hi, here's what a private key is, and like, yeah, you should have saved that. And it really, really hurts us to see people lose their keys or their passwords or, you know, any of these things. And the reality is that they don't understand what's going on. Like, this is the first thing that they probably encountered in their digital lives, where if they lose this single piece of information, it's gone forever, right? Like, we've trained people so much that everything's recoverable. And even in the real world, you have insurance, you have banks, you have undo buttons, you have, you can block and ban and start over and whatever. There's nothing that creates that really, really true, fundamental, just gone, poof, loss. And so, you know, people like Ledger, like I'm like the biggest fan of Ledger, you know. MetaMask as well is just really, really, an awesome tool. And so, you know, from MyEtherWallet's perspective is like, enabling people to interact with the blockchain while while not having their keys with other people, like that's our goal. It doesn't mean that like we want you to have your keys on our website though either. So lots of stuff, lots of great stuff.
So it seems like there's kind of a category of people, particularly like individuals, who that's really useful for. I think there's another category of people that just want exposure to the asset class, right? Like, and there's a narrative that, you know, Wall Street is coming, and I think that's more kind of Linda and Ben, kind of what you guys are focused on to some degree. Maybe you want to talk a little bit. Do you see increased interest from Wall Street, not just to use a product, but just to get exposure to the asset class? And how are you thinking about kind of giving investors that exposure?
Yeah, there's a lot of increased interest on Wall Street. So there was just a conference, Consensus Invest, last week, and there were so many family offices and institutional investors that wanted to come into the space and get exposure, and they weren't quite sure like how to do that. And so there's different options right now. So they can use something like Coinbase, where they can get buy some Bitcoin in Ether on there. But there's also concerns around like, for them, like they have to like create an account on there, and they have to like worry about like potential account takeovers on there. They also just maybe want exposure to like other assets that Coinbase doesn't support. They don't feel comfortable holding ledgers themselves. So I think there's like a really big disparity in some of the folks I talked to on Wall Street. And so that's kind of, I think, why you're seeing a lot of this proliferation of crypto funds coming into the space. It's a really easy vehicle for these institutional investors to kind of park their money and not have to worry about anything and just get exposure right now.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. It's interesting as you talk to the hedge funds and the institutional folks that are coming into the space, or the people that are looking to come into the space. There's really, two concerns. The first concern is just around, they don't have any idea how to hold these assets. And so, kind of job number one is don't lose other people's money, especially when it can be hacked or someone could take it. But job number two is around being a qualified custodian. So some of the firms that we're talking to are established hedge funds. They're managing $2 to $5 to $10 billion. They're traditional hedge funds, if you will, and they want exposure to the asset class. But because they are an investment advisor, they are pseudo or regulated by the SEC. And so because of that, there's a requirement that they have a third-party qualified custodian, and there's just not a lot of qualified custodians. So if you Google that, you'll see quickly that it's a bank or a broker-dealer or some other type of financial institution. And so that's a real challenge, because people obviously want exposure to the asset class with as much as it's appreciated, but they won't, and perhaps they want to put 2% of their assets under management in digital currency, but they're not going to risk the 98% of their assets because they don't have a qualified custodian, or they can't find one. So a lot of the calls that we take sometimes are, hey Ben, is Silvergate a qualified custodian? Do you guys custody these types of assets? And we don't currently.
I think the infrastructure is just not there yet to have a lot of money flowing from Wall Street. There's the qualified custodian. It's about like what will be the ruling from the regulators. Are there like some existing like qualified exchanges for that? So we see all these stack being built as we speak. So there's the futures, some qualified custodian are being built. We want to provide like piece of the infrastructure for that, but I think it's just like it will be a process, and there will be more money flowing in. I think it can be good. It's not what's going to make a decentralized application work, but people will be happy with the buy pressure, I guess.
Taylor, I imagine Wall Street's not really using MyEtherWallet. Is that?
It's actually, I don't think they are. It's amazing though that I do get a number. I still am in the support box, right? Like I was the only one doing support. I still try to do tickets every single day, and the diversity of users that use MyEtherWallet and that are entering the space is really, really remarkable. So obviously, we personally are not seeing like Wall Street, and they definitely aren't emailing us for help. But we're seeing I think the biggest thing and sort of the most surprising thing or most remarkable thing for me is like just the diversity of users. You have people that are old. You'll have people that start their email. They're like, "Hi, I'm 70 years old. My grandchild told me about Ethereum over Thanksgiving. I've created my wallet. I've gone through all these steps. I just wanted to check in with you to make sure that I did them correctly." And I'm like, this is the most amazing thing ever. Like, this is remarkable. And so, I think it's just an indicator of how this space is growing so rapidly. And it's only going to get, like, we're only going to start reaching more and more of these corners. Like, we're going to get out of the San Francisco sort of like bubble-esque and get, you know, all the demographics and get Wall Street and get that institutional money and get, you know, and every time you have more diversity, you're going to have better, stronger, more robust ideas, more robust infrastructure, more robust experiences. And that's, I think, what I'm most excited about in like the next couple of years is seeing.
So there's obviously been just a huge increased demand for the products that all you guys are offering. Maybe starting with Ben, you could talk about kind of what are some of the hurdles to just onboarding, you know, more people more quickly, right? Like you said, at Silvergate, you guys bank about 100 companies. How many are in the queue, and what does onboarding more look like for you?
Yeah, so being a bank, we're obviously one of the most regulated institutions in the space, and what's allowed us to get to this point is the fact that we have this really robust due diligence process up front. And so one of the things we're really mindful of is we don't want to just kind of let the due diligence process go and potentially start banking a bunch of bad actors and then have the whole, you know, kind of program sort of blow up. So that's the challenge is being, you know, being rigorous in kind of what got us here. But yeah, it's a huge challenge, especially with, you know, all of the different folks that are coming into the space. You know, I think that I had heard that there's, you know, 100 different new hedge funds that are coming into the space this year, and then, you know, just about everyone else is looking at it, whether that's you know, endowments, pension funds, existing prop traders. So it's yeah, it's pretty nuts. And if you're in our queue, thank you for your patience. It's interesting. We were out talking to some folks, and we're like, oh yeah, you know, we have this sales pipeline or whatnot, and someone said like, oh, you mean your waiting list? And so it kind of caught me off guard. But it's I don't know. I'm not sure what it is today, but it's probably somewhere 80 to 100.
And do you have a sense of whether more banks in the next year or so are going to be more open to crypto?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I hope so. I mean, I think that we all agree that it's good for the industry to have more banks in the space. I won't mention any names, but I have heard of a handful that are getting in or that are getting more aggressive in the space. So, you know, but more than anything, we want people to go in like eyes wide open. You have to develop a program to do this. You can't just decide one day that you're going to start banking, you know, XYZ crypto company, or you won't be prepared to answer the questions that your regulators are gonna have for you. You know, banks go through a safety and soundness exam at least annually, depending on their size, and so, you know, we've been through 3 or 4 of those now, and you know, you really just have to do it right. So hopefully there'll be more banks, but only if they're, you know, good banks that are dedicated to the space.
And Linda, maybe you could talk a little bit about just institutional demand for crypto funds and how your experience has been with that.
Yeah, there's a lot of institutional demand, but actually there's 200 crypto funds. That was the last number that I heard. So there's a lot of funds coming into this space, and they're all offering different strategies. And so some of the responses from the institutional investors is, okay, I want exposure to the space, but I actually don't know what's the right strategy. Is it trading and arbitrage? Is it long-term focused on investing in the space? Is it like flipping ICOs? Like, what's the best strategy? So I think that a lot of the institutional investors are trying to evaluate kind of what's the best place to park their money to, and we're also seeing some do a diversified approach, and they're putting money into different strategies. There's also fund of funds that are popping up specifically for the crypto space to diversify, because no one truly knows what's the best strategy. I personally think long-term focus is the best, but there's many funds popping up right now.
And Thomas, I know Ledger has been on, the Ledger Nano has been on back order for a good chunk of this year, right? Maybe talk about some of the the growing pains and just how much demand has increased this year?
Yeah, sure. So we started 2017 saying, okay, we're going to make maybe 5x more than 2016, and we're like ending up like on 50x. And so it was very hard to forecast this insane amount of growth. And yeah, scaling software is already hard, but if you need to scale it with a hardware product, then it's get harder and harder. So yeah, we had like it was quite a year to scale the hardware business, to make sure we can scale up the production, scale up the team, scale up everything. So it was kind of hard, but it's good problems to have. And now we finally managed to get through that. So we've got like great supply, and we're really testing the market. And we really see that this growth gets to something that is more mainstream. We see more and more people getting their ledger, even getting their first crypto, because they know they need to have the right setup to start getting in that space. And yeah, we share some of our numbers, but for example, for Black Friday, I think we sold a couple of tens of thousands during the weekend, because well, getting something for the Christmas party, Christmas holidays, it's really something that is hitting some mainstream market a little bit. Just I guess in terms of figures that we give, I think we sold something like little south of 700,000 units, and maybe a third of that in the last 45 days. So definitely it's we see like some insane amount of growth, and I guess we want to provide like a product like that for the ecosystem to grow, to be more secure, and benefits from each other. So yeah, it's been quite a year, and it's going to continue like that.
Mm-hmm. Taylor, you've talked a little bit about kind of growing pains in just the boom. Maybe you could kind of elaborate specifically, like what have been the big challenges in just onboarding new users onto MyEtherWallet?
Yeah, so the biggest problem that we had was that we just didn't see this coming at all. So at the beginning of the year, we were sending maybe, like we just don't have a lot of analytics, so you gotta stick with me. we respect your privacy, but we kind of get an idea of the traffic that we see on MyEtherWallet via like how many transactions go through our node. So to give you an idea, back in January, we were seeing like maybe 5,000 transactions were being sent a day. Today, like just like hours ago, we're like at 150,000. And in peak was like June 21st, which was the status ICO. The network was just like screwed. Like CryptoKitties has nothing on the status ICO day. We sent like half a million transactions during the status ICO. So that sort of growth in that short amount of time, we're talking February, March, April, May, June, it was insane. And the biggest difference between January and June was the users themselves. So we were developers, we were we were people that were already in the crypto space. We were people that were interested in the long-term future of crypto. We were super excited, super curious. The people entering the space for these ICOs, like they were a very diverse mixture of I want to get rich, I like am going to get rich, and this seems cool. Like, how do I get rich? And so that's a really different sort of user than a person who is interested in the technology. The people that were entering a lot of times like didn't want to read a wall of text. They didn't want to read like the white paper. That's why you saw the ICO white papers change from being like these really dense technical documents to being like a true marketing document that had images and pretty graphs and optimistic things. And so from for MyEtherWallet, understanding that like we're no longer our user, like I'm no longer the user, and adapting to that and understanding how to, that we have to do things a little bit differently and we have to handhold a little bit more, and that what they want or what they understand or how much they understand, just may not be there anymore. So it's been a whirlwind to say the least.
Cool. So we've got a few minutes left. Maybe we could you guys could talk about things you're excited about in the next year or so in terms of, it doesn't have to be your own project. It could be anything that's, potentially making digital assets more usable to more people. Anyone have any thoughts?
Yeah, excellent question. I think that in the next couple of years, what we're going to see is that as the space diversifies and as we have more and more people entering this space, you're going to see the things like design, things like usability in terms of like user experience on a website versus a phone app. You know, like actually having phone apps that work really, really well. That would be cool. And I think that honestly that the new perspectives entering this space are going to force everyone, like our users force us to be better. And so that's what I'm most excited to see is like how do we evolve and how do we like grow up from being this like super fun dev oriented thing to being something that the real world can like really truly use without screwing it up.
Yeah, I think we would really want to focus on one aspect around community and making sure we can integrate with some interesting decentralized application and interesting blockchain out there. Well, to give more security on the edge of the networks and to be able to enter decentralized application. There are some very promising one, and I guess in the next 12, 18 months they will deliver that promise and be actually very useful. Things like decentralized exchanges, decentralized prediction markets. There's a couple of stuff around like, atomic swaps, lightning, proof of stake, where you'll need to own your keys on the edge of the network. And we really want we've got some APIs, we want to make our product really adapted for these type of applications. So that's something we really want to put a focus on. And the other one is really around governance, building some governance models on how the funds can be accessed and enabling users or institutions to build some governance models, multi-authorization, rate limitings, things like that, so that they can like create their own governments that they enforce themselves.
I'm really excited for Monero integration for Ledger, so that's actually something I'm really waiting for. Yeah, other things around like usability. So again, going back to speculation, there's a lot of people that want access to like a diversified portfolio of crypto assets, but don't necessarily have the net worth that's needed to go into hedge funds. So I want to see more products coming out that make it easier for someone to get that kind of exposure, like a wealth front or something for the crypto space. And I'm also generally really excited to see more just like tools and education around like how do you actually store your private keys, maybe making it really easy for someone to understand and make it kind of fun for them. So I'd like to see just some more usability around that.
I'll give a really short and really boring bank answer. I think, just infrastructure, and what I mean by that is things have grown so quickly, so fastly, and I know that tech teams are working nights and weekends and holidays and whatnot. So I just think it'll be good to, if we can build that out and not have, everyone that's in the industry kind of, redlining, because I just don't think that is sustainable.
Awesome. So we're a little over, but thank you guys very much for joining us.